Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to Festival Integration Diaries, day 37. So initially I thought I'd keep this going through the entire festival season because I have 4 more festivals to go to, but I'm actually feeling that I'm going to complete it at day 40, and that feels like a good amount. I may do Festival Diaries when I go to those other festivals and just do little short series, but for now, that's what I want to focus on, is completing to day 40, and then I can turn to other topics. So I want to speak into something that came up a lot for me when I was on the festival tour, and then as I've reviewed images and photos and video of the tour, has definitely literally been in my face. And that is the fact that I am aging, that I am becoming, I guess, an older woman. And that's not my internal self-image. It's not how I feel, of course, on the inside at all. But by doing these festival diaries every single day, I was seeing myself on camera, looking at myself. And to date, I haven't had any cosmetic work done. I made a point of literally not using any filters all the way through, except for one day I did use a filter on the video because I was just like, oh my God. So I did use a filter on that one day, and then I was like, no, stick to the no filter. Partly because I wanted to show a really exposed, vulnerable, stripped bare, real version of myself at festivals. And like looking at some of the photos of me presenting, I'm like, oh my God, you can totally tell I haven't washed my hair in 3 or 4 days, and I just don't look, what do you call it, polished, groomed, well presented. You know, and in the moment at the festivals, I don't even take a mirror with me. So when I do put mascara on every day, and when I put mascara on, I'm literally doing it without a mirror. I know how to do that. So this whole thing around image and around aging, around how I look, has been coming up really strongly. So I want to speak into it and just be completely honest about what it's like for me, I guess, as a public figure to be visibly aging. I've been online since 2006, probably started making videos around 2012, like 10 years ago when I was in my 30s. And so you can go back and you can look at those videos of me when I was much, much younger. And when I was always the youngest person in the room. For so long, I was always the youngest person in the room. And what really hit me on the festival tour this year is that I was often the oldest person in the room. Not always, but quite often. And some of my best friends that I'm hanging out with, and some of my new best friends, a couple of them, they're only 22, and yet we just gelled and bonded. And I feel like I'm their age. So I'm hanging out with people, and then sometimes I catch a glimpse of my own face in like the toilet mirror or whatever, and be like, fuck, I'm old or older. And what I noticed was, I'm single right now. And of course, a lot of the men at festivals I'm interacting with, there were some amazing, beautiful men at festivals, and a lot of them are a lot younger. They're in their 20s, they're in their 30s. A few of them are in their 40s. And I tell you what, when I meet a man in his 40s that I'm attracted to, I feel such a sense of relief. It's like, oh, you're in my age bracket. You're in your 40s too, even though like I'm 47. So I'm edging towards 50. And what I noticed was, because I'm single, because I'm getting older, because the men just seem to keep getting younger, and I noticed too that the men that I know that date women that are a lot younger, like I know men that are 50 and don't seem to have any qualms about dating a woman who's 21, 22. Or men that are 40 that are dating a 22-year-old or whatever. And so, I'm like, is it my internal resistance to that it doesn't feel quite, like if a man who was like 27 or 28 decided he was really into me, would I have an issue with it? Or would that be totally okay? Or would it make me feel really self-conscious because of my age? And I realized, because this was in my mind quite a bit, and I was like, oh shit, I'm coming up against social conditioning here. And there is a lot of social conditioning, of course, about what it means to be human, about what it means to be in a female body or a male body, about what it means to be certain ages, about what it means to be this, what it means to be that. Like, we are inundated with conditioning, and often we don't realize we're carrying the conditioning until it starts to come up in mind generated, like lots of thoughts around it. And so I started to realize that one of the reasons I started to feel weird, or like, not weird, but I started to feel like my age, or started to get concerned about it, was the sense of like, oh, men won't find me attractive because I'm no longer young. And then, you know, feeling into that when I'm hanging out with other women who are around my age, and some of them, you know, they're talking about menopause, etc. And I noticed in myself, I'm just like, I don't want to go there. Or at least I realize there's a part of me that hasn't yet really deeply let go of the maiden and started to embrace the crone, because that's the crux of where I am. I am no longer young. That's the truth of it, you know. And in the past, the way that I dealt with aging, because I remember when I was 30 was the first time I started to see like wrinkles on my face or whatever, and I was freaking out. And it was like, oh my God, I'm getting old, I'm getting wrinkly. And then I had this realization when I was 30. I was like, fuck, I will never be this young again. And I realized that worrying about how I looked right then, when I was 30, was ridiculous, because there would come a time when I would be desperate to be 30 again. And so that has been the way that I have orientated to aging. I just remind myself, I will never be this young again. I will never be this young again. And to date, that really worked, and that helped to keep me in this appreciation and love for my body, my face, and how I'm showing up, because it will never be like this again. But I think there's a new level of work that I need to do now that's showing up, where I have to make peace with letting go of youth. I have to make peace with letting go of the maiden. And just embrace the fact that I'm becoming an older woman and all that that means. This is a deep identity piece, right? And this is what the journey of awakening and liberation is all about. If I'm attached to this idea of who I am as a young woman, or even a youthful woman, well, everything is always constantly changing, including our age, including our body, including our face. And so that attachment to that identity is what generates the thoughts and generates the suffering, you see. And so there's a realization of like, oh shit, this is revealing my own attachment to identity of looking a particular way, moving a particular way, feeling a particular way. And if I ignore it, you know, if I ignore it, pretend it's not happening on the inside, then that's only going to lead to more suffering. Now, on a material level, you know, there are things that I could do to look younger. You know, I could get Botox. You know, when I looked at some of the photos, Tamara Josephine took photos for me when I was at Evolve. They're beautiful photos, amazing. So many wrinkles, like, because I'm constantly, my face is really expressive, and I'm like, wrinkles here and wrinkles there and wrinkles there. And I know on one level that I'm not saying this is not beautiful or anything, but what I'm saying is that internally my identification as a young woman and as a woman that looks a particular way is being challenged. And it's like, oh fuck, that's what I look like now. I have wrinkles. Get used to it. There's going to be more coming. Yeah, so I could get cosmetic procedures, I could do all of those things, and there's nothing wrong with doing that at all. And who knows, maybe down the line I will do that. But it doesn't address the underlying issue, which is the identification with being youthful or being young. And so the suffering still remains. Whew. So I just wanted to acknowledge this publicly, that this is happening for me, that this was exacerbated because of the festival tour and the people I'm hanging around with. Like, I adore my friends, and so many of my friends are so much younger than me. They're in their early 30s, their mid 30s, they're in their 20s. And when I'm hanging out with them all the time, that's when it becomes really obvious that I am older. Which, you know, I'm way wiser. Like, I was a mess when I was in my 20s. I was such a mess. Bless that woman. And I'm not now, you know. I was codependent and all those things in my 30s, and I'm not now. And so I'm recognizing as well the conditioning around attractiveness to the opposite, you know, to partners. Might not be the opposite sex, right? But yeah, my attractiveness to partners, and fuck, I can really feel like I've been privileged in my life because I conform to conventional beauty standards, etc. So I'd never really had to worry about whether or not partners would find me attractive. And now that that's coming in and I can feel that, I'm like, whoa, this is a really deep thing as a human, as a biological being, this desire to feel attractive to potential partners. It's like, fuck, what happens if like not attractive to any, what happens if nobody ever falls in love with me again? And it's like, fuck, you know, like feeling all of those things, and then just feeling so much compassion for other people that haven't necessarily been as physically privileged as me, and the journeys that, you know, everyone else, other people have been on. Okay, so I want to sum this up now. You know, it's my skin, my wrinkles. And I know I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying that there's not beauty. I'm not saying any of that, right? So what I invite you to do if you're listening or watching this is don't dismiss what's coming up for me as if I shouldn't be having this experience. This is the experience that I'm having, and it's not super strong, but it is quite present. And I'm recognizing that the reason I'm having this experience is because of attachment to identity. And then because I'm recognizing that that's what's leading to the suffering, I'm going, okay, I got some big work to do around this. I need to, yeah, like realize that not young anymore. And that's okay, you know, like, this is the nature of being human. Like, things are always changing. Things are always dying. You know, like when I became a mother, the single woman died. You know, when my son moves out of home, empty nester. Like, there's all of these different things that happen all of the time. But this is how I orientate in my life, is that I notice when there's mental chatter, and I get really curious about the source of that mental chatter, attachment or aversion, and then I go in and I do what's required to dissolve the attachment or to face the aversion so that the mental chatter and the suffering dissolves and I come back into a place of equilibrium. This is awakening and liberation. This is walking the path, and this is the work I teach. This is the work I teach. I mentor people. I run an online portal, the Toolbox, and I run direct realization trainings, which is about directly realizing the truth of who and what you are. And I know, this is the experience I have of life. I know that what I am is awareness, right? Expressing through this being. And there's still that attachment to identity, the attachment to body, the attachment to the idea of who I think I am. All right, I'd love to hear from some of you, like, how's the aging process going for you? Have you let go of the maiden, or what's the masculine equivalent of that? You know, what's it like if you're a man? What's it like for you aging and hitting your 40s, etc.? Yeah, I'll leave it at that. So this was day 37 of Festival Integration Diaries, and this is one of the things that has come up for me a lot, is aging, wrinkles, attractiveness, age differences. You know, is it okay if I hit on someone who's in their late 20s, early 20s? Is that icky? Is that odd? It's like a whole new world to navigate. I was always the younger one getting hit on by the older men. Yeah. Anyway, we'll leave it on that note. Blessings to you all.